So now I'm going to start to make some piping. I've cut my bias strips and I've got some piping cord. There's lots of different sizes of piping cord. I tend to use 4mm or 5mm thick piping cord. I'm not even sure what this one is. Probably even maybe 4mm. This one is I think it's a nylon and cotton mix actually. The pure cotton ones are fine, but they can become really squidgy and unroll really easily. This one doesn't unroll, so sometimes I quite like a little bit of nylon going on. Okay, right, so the feet I'm going to use is I'm going to use my normal sewing foot, and then I'm going to use a piping foot, which is this foot here, which looks a bit like an invisible zipper foot on the front, but underneath it has these lovely grooves, and the grooves are for my piping. Okay, but as not everybody has one of those, I'm also going to show you how to do it with just a normal zipper foot. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, put these to one side, first thing I'm going to do is just make up my bias into one long strip. This piping is going to go around a cushion, and next week I'll show you how to put it on around the cushion and how to do an invisible seam. So just going to make this up. So again, this one flat, another one laid down on top, not including the selvage, making a nice square, sewing from here to here. Piping for a cushion, for a lounge cushion, you don't need loads of it. So I need about 80 inches, maybe 82. My cushion's about 19, I think. Can't remember, it's either 18 or 20. Okay, so that's my actual bias strips made. And unlike when you make, I'm just going to cut the eary bits off, cut the ears off. This one. Unlike when you make binding, you don't then have to iron this really. So last one. Okay, so I've got one nice long strip now. So now I'm going to do my piping. Okay, so to make piping, you're going to take your bias strip, okay, and you're going to take your piping cord, and you're going to lay the piping cord in the middle of the bias strip, okay, and then you're just going to fold the binding around the piping cord. That's all there is to it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you two ways to do this. Piping feet for, I'm not sure about a Bernina, but for most other machines they're going to be about £20 or less, and to my mind they are really worth it. And when anybody comes here for lessons and they see a piping foot, most people go home and get one. So this is the method using a zipper foot. Now, because I know that I'm going to want to join this, I'm just going to leave a little bit flappy without it being joined. I'm going to move my, I'm going to move my needle position across. Okay, and then, so I've moved my needle so it's really close to the edge of the piping. I've got my zipper foot on so I can get close to the piping, and I'm going to sew along the edge. And all I'm doing is just, holding it, making sure that it's staying in the middle. So I tend to do a bit and then check it's in the middle. hold it down, do a bit. Okay, and let's just show you that bit. That gives you some really nice piping. Okay. Even easier is to use this piping foot. It's not a cording foot, it's a piping foot. We need to go back to a normal stitch. So I put my needle back into the middle. This time I'm just going to put my, can you see that there's 2 grooves, depends on which way I'm going. This way I want to put my piping over or into the first groove. And then we're just going to, that's all you do to make your piping. So you can make it with a zipper foot, no problem. But if you think you might like piping, and I didn't know how much I like piping, but I really like piping now, then buy a piping foot. Okay. You can make piping out of any material. Okay. You don't want something that's super thick, but any quilting material will do. Quilting cotton. Things I like making piping out of are materials with straight stripes, because they become, because you've cut it on the bias, they become diagonal little flashes. They look really cool. And even stuff that is diagonal or zigzagged, when it's printed, when it's cut on the bias, becomes straight and horizontal, and it's, you get a real different mix of how that fabric looks when you cut it on the bias. Okay, so just carry on here. Buying piping cords, I buy quite a lot. You shouldn't pay a lot for piping cords. It should be, you know, less than £1. For a metre. And you may find actually you're better just buying a roll of like 50 metres. Piping can go onto cushions, just like in normal home cushions. It can go onto box cushions. We use piping on bags here, so some of the swoon pattern bags require piping. And piping also looks great on small zip-up pouches to add definition between 2 different types of fabric. It can look really great there. And you can also add piping to the binding of a quilt, and that looks fantastic. And at some point I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just about there now. Last little bit. Okay. When I put the piping on, I'm just slightly stretching it to make sure. So I'm just, you see me just pulling it slightly to make sure that it goes on really nicely and nice and taut. And again, when I get to the end, I'm not going to go right to the end. I'm just going to so here's my so it started off looking like this, okay, and now I've got lovely piping which will go around the edge of my cushion front really, really nicely, which is next week. So till then, happy piping making.